Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I thought we would have a look at the new Warbond shop and how it's all going to work, especially now that they've tied it in with the new Battle Pass, which is now here. Basically now the way that you get Warbonds is through completing stages of the Battle Pass. All of the Warbonds seem to be available for free, so therefore you don't have to buy the Battle Pass in order to get access to the Warbond shop. So the Warbond shop is staying completely free when it comes to pretty much everything. They've also revamped it a little bit. It will be available for 75 days now, so instead of it being changed every month, it will go along with the Battle Pass. So the first Battle Pass will be available for 75 days. The first Warbond shop for the first season of the Battle Pass will also be available for 75 days. So let's see what they've changed about it. Basically, they've, in my opinion, improved the vehicles that are available in the Warbond shop, and they've also changed the Battle Trophy. We are now on Battle Trophy Vehicle 4, which has some pretty cool stuff in it. Everything else seems pretty similar in the way that it's going to work. So, let's get started. Only one thing that seems to be a little bit different now is when it comes to the special tasks. It seems to be that they're limited right now. Don't know exactly why. It seems that it says you cannot buy a special task because you do not have permission to perform special tasks. A one-time permit is issued immediately after successfully receiving a reward for completing a daily task or medium difficulty. So I'm guessing since I haven't done the dailies for the day, because obviously the day's just started for me, therefore it is not available. So let's get into it. Let's have a look at the stuff that you can get on offer when it comes to the Warbond shop. Remember, it is still completely free, it is still completely available, so this is stuff you can do on top of stuff like the Battle Pass, events, normal research, all of this stuff, which is wonderful. The first thing is the test drives. So the first test drive is for the MB5. Now the MB5 is a fighter for the British. It's definitely a unique and interesting design, but since this is just available for test drive, I have to say, I have to be quite honest with you, it doesn't fly particularly well. It also only has Mk.II Hispanos, a battle rating for Battle Racing 5.0, which can be very annoying, but it does have access to a pretty cool market skin in the form of the Seabaker, which is really nice to see. As you can see, it's a contra prop and also has access to pretty interesting flight characteristics. Its main issue that it has is it doesn't have the greatest rates of climb when it comes to a lot of other vehicles that it faces at the BR, and its maneuverability isn't the best, so therefore you always feel like when you're in a situation against an enemy, they will have definite advantages over you. So for me personally, the MB5 is an interesting plane, but it's probably a no-go when it comes to the test drives. Then we have the Mk.II SS11. This is just a standard Mk.13 which has access to 4 SS11 ATGMs sat on the top of it. These are keyboard controlled ATGMs, and the way that it works is they fire upwards and then you bring them down. In order to have the ATGMs go on target, you have to be looking at your enemy, therefore exposing your turret to a bunch of enemies coming forward. Now they have changed the hull break mechanics, so at least you'll be able to be a bit more survivable and stuff like the Mk.13, but at 6.7, the gun, the 75mm, isn't the best. It has a really good reload on it because it has an autoloader, but generally there'll be a lot of heavy tanks that you struggle with penetrating and doing decent damage to, so therefore you have to rely on the SS11s, and then by that point, you know, the SS11s are incredibly slow. Generally it means that, you know, you end up in a pretty bad situation overall with them. So for me personally, I would say the SS11 Mk.13 is a rough one as well. The Naval is slightly different though. The Naval is a French fighter, which you can find at 5.7. It gets an airborne nowadays in Air Realistic, and also access to some pretty cool ordnance at the same time, and it is also quite expensive. This was actually the starter premium for the French when it came out. Now it's available for GE. The flight characteristics are a little bit all over the place. It definitely gets outperformed by a decent decent amount of vehicles at its BR, but it does get access to some really nice guns, 6 MG151s, and the main thing is the loadouts, where it does get access to some rockets and also some bombs, so it is useful not just in air realistic, and it's also useful in ground realistic. In air realistic, you can use this thing as a bomber hunter because of the air spawn, and in ground realistic, you can use it as a CAS vehicle with the ability to be an air superiority fighter afterwards, even though it will get outdone by a lot of vehicles that are around it because it doesn't maneuver very well. The next one is the RU-251. The RU-251 is an insanely good machine. It's one of those ones which I refuse to purchase because it has so many nice factors to it. I feel like it would be a little bit game-breaking running around in it. It has good gun depression. It has a very nice heat shell, heat FS at 6.7. It can deal with a lot of the heavy tanks that are around that BR. Because of the hull break changes now, it's a little bit more survivable, and also it has access to scouting, has access to speed, has access to artillery, has access to pretty much everything you would want out of a machine like this. So generally the only thing that it struggles with is its reload and also the survivability, but you can play around that quite easily when it comes to the vehicle. It also is rank 4, so it can research rank 5 and below very well, so overall this is a really nice machine with some awesome rewards on it as well. Win rate wise, when I've had a look at it compared to a lot of other machines, it's struggled, but apart from that it's been going okay. Then we have the F-89D. This is the most unique vehicle when it comes to the test drive stuff. This is only armed with rockets, but the rockets themselves are proximity rockets. At least it has normal Mighty Mouses, and then it has the M439s. Basically, one of these is just standard rockets, which you will be used to. The other one is, of course, the proximity one. So in any head-on, you can win the engagement pretty easily, as long as you understand your convergence. It also has a lot larger range than a lot of the gun jets that are in the game. It does struggle, at least in my opinion, when it comes to its general speed at 7.7 and also its maneuverability. Every time I face one of these things, I feel like as long as I dodge the head-on, I will definitely be in a place where I will have some kind of advantage over it, depending on what vehicle I'm in. I'll either have the advantage of being a vehicle which can outmaneuver it, or it can go faster than it. So yeah, it also has access to incredibly small engines, the J35As, but they do have a lot of power behind them, and also it gets access to an afterburner, which is really nice to see. Overall, a pretty cool vehicle and very unique and very good in specific individuals' hands. The next one is the new Trashemy. So the new Trashemy makes it back to the test drives, and the new Trashemy is once again one of those vehicles that has some interesting stuff. So it has the very modern 130mm, which have a good fire rate. It has 2 sets of them, and then it has a ton of 45s on it. It has 16 overall. The 45s will decimate any lower, smaller machine, and also do a ton of damage to anything that doesn't have any armor on it. And the 130s give you good damage over a distance. It doesn't have as much firepower as some of the other machines at 4.7 and 5.0 for the destroyers, but at least for me, I think it is able to at least, at least it's able to do a decent amount to them with those 130s, and then if anything gets close to it, it just gets annihilated by the 45s. That includes aircraft as well. Also gets access to torpedoes. These torpedoes don't have a great travel distance on them, even with the torpedo mode. The Soviet torpedoes aren't always the best in the business, but you can still fire them up to 10k, which will normally work out pretty well for you. Overall, a pretty nice machine. So looking at the test drives, I would go, the RU-251 is definitely number 1 of the one I'd pick up, then the F-89D, then I would go for the Naval, then the new Trashemy, then the AMX-13 SS11, and unfortunately last is the MB5. We also have back here the battle trophy for the bushes and also the helmets. So remember that now you actually have collections available for stuff, and one of the collections that is available is access to this Born to Kill helmet right here. And all you have to do is get all of the helmet decorations. They are 500G each if you want to just pick them up, or you could grind them through the Warbond shop, which is basically what I'm doing. So you know, you can pick them up as well. Then if we have a look at the vehicles that are available, first of all we have the Avenger Mk.II. This is a British machine, which is in the British tech tree. It's obviously a premium, just like all of these vehicles are, and you can find it at rank 2, I believe. Yeah, there we go. It's a Bats Racing 3.0 vehicle and does have access to some pretty nice stuff. So first of all, it has access to two 12.7mm guns going forward. It also has access to some turrets at the back, but the turrets have really weak gun arcs, so therefore they don't really protect you too much. So the protection on this vehicle is pretty low, but it does get access to some really nice secondary weapons, which is where you're generally looking at something like this. It does get access to Uncle Tom's, which are very large rockets. They work pretty well. The only issue is of course the accuracy on them, but the main thing you pick something like this up for is Naval, because you get access to a really good torpedo and you'll be able to annihilate destroyers or boats or even cruisers with this thing, or even battleships with their weak AA armaments, which works really nicely. You also get access to 4.500s, so you can go base bombing and get some SL with it, because this thing does have a 780% SL reward on it. So overall you do get access to a decent amount of stuff, but it can't really defend itself, which is a real problem. Then you've got this monstrosity. So the Bz.III, if you didn't know, is an absolute seal clubber. The only thing that stands up to the Bz.III is the Swedish with their APDS, which is kind of funny. The Bz.III is found at 2.3 right here. And what you find with this vehicle, as you can see if you fully bush the thing, is it is an increased armored variant of the B1 bis. It has extra armor on the front, and it also has an extra crew member. This means that it has way more survivability than the overall other machines that are around. They also buffed its reload rate on the 47mm, so it can fire a hell of a lot when it comes to it. And also, if you angle it well, you can get over 100mm of armor on the front, meaning that a lot of guns can't pen you. It also has a ton of armor on the side, so it's very hard to pen the sides. The only place where it's a real weak spot is the booty, and if somebody has got to that point behind you, then you're already dead. So this thing is incredibly survivable, not just from its armor, but the amount of crew that's inside. Its gun is good enough at dealing with any enemy that you may fight, and it has actually decent speed for the absolute size of this machine. And yeah, it's just one of those vehicles which is seen as a seal clubbing vehicle because of the overall power that it has, and it's not really a surprise that this will be something that a lot of people go for in the Warbond shop. It also shows how this Warbond shop is turning up when it comes to all of the vehicles. Then we have the BV238 in the house. I think this might be the first time this thing has ever been in the Warbond shop. I'm not sure if it is. It might be. It might have been there once before, but the BV238 is a rank 2 bomber, and it has really nice rewards on it, and also it's at 3.7. This thing gets a long range altitude spawn, so if you ever get downed, nothing is ever getting up to you, so you can just stay high and just bomb a bunch of bases. It also gets access to a ridiculous bomb load of 20 250 kilo bombs. This does a ton of damage to bases. If you have let's say 3 BV238s or 4 BV238s, as long as you're on the old style of maps, you can end the game in about 6 to 7 minutes because of how everything works. And that's not even talking about the armament on this thing. This thing has 4 sets of quad 13mm, and the majority of them shoot behind them. You can see here, there's one right here, one here, and one here. There's also one on the top with MG151s, because why not? And then another quad in the front. This is why this thing is so dangerous, even though it is a massive target. The fact it has so much firepower that can shoot at the enemy means that you can generally trade at least 1 for 1 with it, and then from there, you can be able to just, keep flying and get your bombs off and do a crazy amount to the enemy team. It's one of those machines that I'll never buy because, as I said before, just like the RU-251, I think that it fundamentally breaks the game when it's used properly, and that, to me, is an issue. It's another example of one of these bombers which has too high of a air spawn, meaning that a lot of machines will never get up to it. One of the other common machines which is like this is the Me-2642, when you wonder why, they space climb and nobody can ever kill them, and then you wonder why their repair cost is quite high. So yeah, the BV-238 is a great pick for this Warbond shop. Easy SL and RP rewards. The next one is the M4 Hybrid. This is a conglomeration of different Shermans, which is a premium for the Italians. The General Sherman is always a nice pick when it comes to these general ideas. The reason is because you know what you're getting. You're getting decent armor, decent gun, good stabilizer, decent mobility, and also a 50 cal. So you cover all of the bases when it comes to a machine like this. The 3.7 area as well for Italy has a pretty nice little lineup around it nowadays because of the additions of the last few updates, and because of the DMAR changes when it comes to the 75mm for the Shermans. It also pens and does a ton of damage, the main 75mm. So yeah, it's overall a very good vehicle. It does everything well. It doesn't really do anything badly, and therefore it is a nice pickup as well. The Type 4 Model 4 is a slightly different story. The Type 4 Model 4 is a fun little rank 1 Japanese little machine, and it seems to be one of those ones which always comes in as something in the Warbond shop. You can see here that it doesn't have access to great weaponry, to 20mm and 137, but it does have access to an interesting engine system which is actually above the water. Now you can see them right here, and then obviously all the fuel at the bottom. Bunch of ammunition, and obviously the bridge and the pump. Everything is kind of interesting on this machine. It's one of the more unique premiums of Naval, but it's also not very good. So that's a bit of a problem with it. I would definitely say that if you're looking for something that is competitive, to stay away from this thing, but if you're looking for something unique, it's not a bad little pickup. The next vehicle that is also on the agenda is the T14. The T14 recently got raised in BR for one very specific reason. Once they did the model changes for the shells, the T14 became a little battleship. It has a lot of interesting angles when it comes to its armor. Still has access to the 75mm with the stabilizer, which can pen the majority of stuff at the BR that it finds, has good gun depression, good mobility, has access to the 50 cal. Pretty much all of the things I said about the M4 Hybrid, the T14 does as well, but it also has increased survivability. So this thing is a really nice machine. It works incredibly well in the game. Even after its BR increase, it still does very well. So in my opinion, this is a nice pickup as well. And same with the T3457. The T3457 at 4.7 has a good gun in the form of the 57. The reload on it is also not too bad. The only issue with these machines is their gun depression. Their gun depression is definitely lacking when it comes to the machine itself, but good mobility. The armor as well, if somebody knows how to deal with the T3457 or the T34s in general, the armor doesn't normally stand up, but because of the recent changes, once again, it's how shells work, you seem to bounce a lot more often than you should. Overall, a nice pickup as well. There's a lot of really nice pickups here. You know, the Pz.III, the BV-238, the Hybrid, the T14, and also the T3457. All of these are wonderful vehicles for grinding when it comes to getting research and SL, and also just getting through the trees. So if I was going to label these 1 to however many there are, number 1 would be the Pz.III, 2 the BV-238, 3 the T14, 4 would be the M4 Hybrid, 5 the T3457, 6 would be the Avenger Mk.II, and the Type 4 Model 4 would come in last, unfortunately. Then we talked about the Battle Trophy Vehicle 4. So this is a new box, which is now here, and it does have some new vehicles. The Mk.II 1 High, and then we have the P40C Warhawk, the HE51B2H, CR32 BIS, T26E, and the DB7. So a bunch of vehicles which are either, event vehicles from the past, or vehicles from the from, certain CBTs and stuff like that. So the Mk.II High is one of those vehicles which was from an event from a very long time ago. The main difference between this and the standard Mk.II is this is chock-a-block full of guns. It has 7.7 millimeters all over it, and then a dual-mounted 7.7 on the back, which you can see right here. So wherever you approach this thing from, you are going to get shot by a 7.7. It is only a 7.7 though, so therefore, don't expect too much damage from it. But this thing can go against biplanes, so there's not really a lot the biplanes can do against it. It also has a pretty nice bomb load, not as nice as some other things at the BR, but you can see that it can carry two 500s, a bunch of 50s, two 50s, and also 100s. So whatever situation you're in, you will be able to do some cool stuff with this machine. I think it's one of those unique vehicles that a lot of people probably missed because of the fact that it was such an early on event, and I would definitely say it's worth a pickup just for the value of, having a bit of history in War Thunder. The next one is the P40C Warhawk. This is another machine which was available in an event a very long time ago, and this is just another version of the P40. It does have access to two camouflages though, the standard and the olive green, so I'm not sure if you'll get both of these camouflages, since this one was, I believe, from doing the event, but you get access to 250 cals and 4 7.62s, so very similar to a lot of the other American planes of the 27BR. The 50 cals are very good in ground forces and also very good at tearing apart planes which are flying about the place, and since it's at 2.7 you can actually use this thing to do the battle pass stuff as well. Pretty nice rewards for a rank 2, and it can competently research rank 3, 2 and 1. It also gets access to a 500-pound bomb as well, so you can use it in ground realistic, even if you don't just want to use the 12.7s, which do penetrate a lot. 26 millimeters, which is enough to go through the top of many German tanks at the BR that this thing finds it at. The P40C has slightly different performance to the P40E. It's designed it's designed for different conditions, basically based on altitude, but you'll still get the same general feel on it overall when it comes to the game. And just remember, there is also another P40E coming to the game in the form of a Twitch drop this weekend, so make sure to check that out. The float plane, so the HE51B2 is also here. This was another event vehicle from ages ago, and it gets access to the smallest bombs in the game. It gets access to 10 kilogram bombs that you can see right here under the wing, which I always thought was a nice little touch. And then also for this vehicle, you get access to two 7.62s. This is just a float plane version of the HE51. Don't expect anything crazy from it. Once again, just another part of War Thunder history, which is really nice to see in the game. And also just flying around and having a bit of fun at low tiers is always something that's incredibly fun for me. Then we have access to the CR32 BIS. This is a very well armed biplane for the Italians, two 12.7s and two 7.7s. Because it's well armed, it does struggle a little bit with its weight, meaning that you can get outmaneuvered by a lot of other biplanes, but overall you can still fly about the place and do a ton. It also has a really cool cockpit on it, if you've ever been inside of it, and also a nice little grinder for rank 1 and 2. I do think there are better grinders for Italy though, so I'd check them out. So then we have the T26E. This was a ground CBT vehicle that you could purchase. I believe I purchased it at the time, and it is just a T-26 with additional armor. That additional armor doesn't mean anything, though. Everything can pretty much still pen you because you have this little plate here, and also it's only 30 millimeters thick. So yeah, it's just a heavier T-26. It's a chunky monkey, but it is once again a really cool vehicle to have. And then you've got the DB7. The DB7 is the French version of an A10 basically, with some French modifications, meaning that it has access to the 7.5mm Mk 1934 guns. It has two in the back, so one at the bottom, one at the top, and then it also has four 7.5mm in the front. You get access to four 500-pounders, as you can see here, but at least to me, I think this is one of the weaker A20s that we have in game. It's obviously one of the earlier versions of it, and also it gets access to the Pratt & Whitney S3 CGs. The plane is still good though, you know, it's still rank 2, it's still 2.3, it can it can run away from enemies pretty effectively, and also the guns are quite nice, especially with the amount of ammunition they have. But if you compare it to the other vehicles that are like it in the British tech tree, such as the Boston, which is around there, you know, you have the Boston Mark 1, then you got the DB7, then you got the Havoc as well. I would generally say the DB7 is one of the weaker ones compared to the other two that we have sat there. Hopefully we get the other versions, which I don't think they're in the files anymore, but they were for a long time. So if I was going to rank these ones, number 1 would definitely be the P40C, then number 2, the Key 21, number 3 would be the float plane, just because of its iconic value, number 4, the DB7, number 5, the T-26E, and then the CR-32 Bist, unfortunately, comes in last. So yeah, that is the Warbond shop for the next few months. Hopefully you guys can get some free stuff through War Thunder. Always worth doing to get the free stuff rolling, and also focus on this instead of grinding general tech trees. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, Elove Goat, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez B. Young, and also Hans Vergellen, Sebastian Mizon, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.